Our focus for today is on cognitive development. In other words, how do children develop the ability to think and kind of make sense of their world over time? How do these mental abilities emerge to think, to problem solve, to interpret the world around us? And for that, the one big name that we're going to talk about today is Jean Piaget, who was a Swiss developmental psychologist who had a very interesting way of studying child development. He essentially would take children, pose problems or trials to them, and then observe how they would respond or how they would solve the particular problem that he had put in front of them. And from these trials and from his observations, he developed his theory of cognitive development. We're going to start by talking about something called a schema, which you might remember back from our cognition unit. Remember that we have schemas for everything. Schemas are kind of the way that we mentally organize the world. Schemas are built from our experiences. They influence the way that we take in and process new information. And they also help set our expectations. So remember, we have schemas for everything. We have schemas for marriages, for home life, for college, for school. We have schemas for events, which remember we call scripts. So just as a reminder, you can think of these schemas as like a cluster of knowledge that we associate with a particular person, place, or thing. Boo. Why does Boo in Monsters, Inc. call Sully Kitty? Well, remember we said he's got horns that might look like ears. He's furry. He has a tail. And so what is Boo attempting to do? She's attempting to assimilate this new creature, Sully, into an existing schema that she has for a cat. So again, I use the word assimilate because we call this assimilation. To assimilate means to blend in. So when we try to take new information and fit it into an existing schema, that's really the first step in schema formation. We're processing new information in the context of what we already know. But the second step, Piaget says, in schema formation is what we call accommodation. I like to look at the C's in accommodation and think that C stands for change, because accommodation occurs when we change or modify an existing schema to make way for that new information that we're learning. So Boo, for example, is going to accommodate by creating a new schema for monsters and adjusting or modifying her schema for cats to say, okay, cats don't have horns, they're not blue, they're not huge, right? And they don't have this tremendous tail, and they can't talk. So just through using that little simple example from Monsters, Inc., we see both assimilation and accommodation, which Piaget says are important steps in schema formation. This is another example. We have 2-year-old Gabriella who's learned the schema for cow from the picture books that she's being read. Gabriella is out and she sees a moose and calls it a cow. So she's trying to assimilate. She's trying to take a new animal that she's never seen before and fit it into an existing schema or blend it into an existing schema. Mom says to her, no, that's a moose. Well, what does Gabriella do? Now Gabriella is going to accommodate her schema for large, shaggy animals. All right, so now within that category, we have moose, we have cows, and she's going to continue to modify that schema to include mommy moose, baby moose, and so on and so forth. She's going to keep creating that hierarchy or keep modifying that knowledge cluster.